What's going on YouTube? So over the last few years, Hyundai has really doubled down on crossovers, from the very small Venue all the way up to this 3-row Palisade. And now, going into only its second model year, Hyundai is already making a lot of changes, like adding more standard equipment to all the trim levels, revising some of the styling elements, and even introducing a high-end calligraphy model to the lineup for the first time. Now, this was already considered one of the best 3-rows on the market, but did these 2021 updates now make it number one? Let's go ahead and find out. So it's very uncommon for a manufacturer to make changes on just the second model year after a full redesign, but Hyundai actually has, and you'll notice that right up here in the front. Now what we've got is the limited trim, but you'll notice that the grille doesn't look like last year. You no longer have the bars across the front, and that's because that's now been eliminated. The limited trim has the same fascia as the SE and the SEL trim level this year with the kind of chrome mesh. Now that new calligraphy model, that actually has its own unique grille design, which features little chrome triangles, but kind of looks similar to this setup. Now along the bottom on the limited model, you will find a silver accent, and the calligraphy model has a big accent that goes all the way across. Now over here at the headlights, this is one of our most important 2021 changes, and that's that the full LED headlights are now standard across all of the trim levels. So previously the SE and the SEL had halogen lights, and now you have the advanced setup. However, you're still not going to find fog lights on any of the trim levels. And continuing our design updates here at the wheels, you'll notice we have a new design for the limited trim. This was previously part of the SEL premium package. It is a 20-inch contrast alloy design. If you go for the calligraphy model, that also has a 20-inch alloy, but with a really wild design that's really attention grabbing. Finally, on the lower trim levels, those both have 18-inch alloys. And jumping up here to your mirrors, they have a really unique design with this kind of circled LED turn signal. This is on the majority of the trim levels, as well as blind spot monitoring being on all but the base model. And then all the trim levels have heating.
All right, so let's go ahead and check out the Palisade's rear design. Now back here in the rear, you're not going to see as many changes as you do in the front, but there are a few different calligraphy exclusive touches. But starting out with the tail lights, these are going to be the full LED setup. This is the premium setup that's on the top trims, and you do also have this nice little silver accent here to kind of give it a unique look. In addition to that, we have Palisades spelled out across the back, and then we also have this silver diffuser area. And it is worth noting that if you go for that calligraphy model, that's going to have a unique diffuser design, and all of the models are going to have the dual exhaust on the right side. Now Hyundai has really brought their A game to the table when it comes to the safety systems, because you're going to have absolutely all of them standard even on the very base model. That's going to include even your most advanced safety systems like adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, and auto high beam headlamps. But that's going to conclude the exterior for this 2021 Hyundai Palisade. And let's go ahead and check out the inside. That's really quite luxurious on this limited model. And before we do that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below.
Now walking up to the Palisade, Hyundai was nice enough to include their smart entry system, as well as remote start on all but the very base model. And then to get inside the vehicle itself, there's not going to be a sensor behind the handle, so you just press the button to unlock. Now taking a peek inside of this cabin, this is one of the things that really makes the Palisade stand apart, because it has such an upscale design for this price tag. Now as far as your different color and material options, you do have quite a number of choices, and you have even more this year. So for your SE and your SEL, that's going to come standard with cloth seating in your choice of black or gray. SEL with the premium package upgrades you to real leather in black, gray, or light beige. Now, when you get up to this limited trim or the calligraphy, that's where you will get the real Napa leather, which of course is a very premium grade of leather, and that comes in black, beige, or for the calligraphy only, a special dark brown. Now turning over here to your door trim, you're going to see those same nice materials reflected up here. So you have leather across all of this as well as above it. But I will point out one update for 2021, and that's that the limited trim now loses the quilting on the door trim. You will have to go for the calligraphy if you want that this year. Above that we have some black trim, and the top is going to be soft touch. On the limited and above, you'll find 2-person memory seating, and all 4 of your windows are one-touch automatic. Now, as far as your seats, the vast majority of models are going to come with an 8-way power adjusting seat. However, if you choose the limited or the calligraphy, you'll get 4-way lumbar support as well as the power thigh extension. And then, like I was already saying, these seats are made of fine Napa leather, and they are absolutely lovely. You have the quilting detail up here at the top for a really upscale look. The leather quality is superb, and you even have the color contrast piping around the outside, so this is definitely a seat that is worthy of a luxury vehicle. Now, the great materials extend far beyond the seats, and it is definitely safe to say this Palisade has one of the nicest cabins in the entire class. So across your upper dash, you're going to find a soft touch plastic. Dropping down here to the middle, we have a black trim on this model. You can get a faux wood trim if you choose the lighter colored model. And then down below, we have a leather trim that runs through the middle. We also have more leather that runs along through here with a stitching detail where your knees would rest against. All this is finished in a faux aluminum, and of course everything in here fits together absolutely wonderfully. Now, to start up the Palisade, all but the base model will have standard push button start. So once it fires up, one of the first things you're going to notice is this premium 12.3-inch full reconfigurable gauge cluster setup. Now, this is standard on limited and calligraphy models. There are actually 2 different setups on the lower end models with a small display and then a 7-inch display. But this right here is the most premium setup. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is one of the best reconfigurable gauge clusters I've seen, especially in a mainstream vehicle. So you can cycle through a lot of different information here, or you can also cycle to this side and change information over here as well. Now, it does have some additional tricks. So if you have the limited or the calligraphy model, you have the blind camera system. So when you signal one direction or the other, it puts a camera view of your blind spot, which is definitely very helpful. And in addition to that, the limited and calligraphy also throw in a head-up display. Now, coming back to the steering wheel, of course you have electric power assisted steering. You will find a nice leather wrap steering wheel on the SEL and above. If you choose that new calligraphy model, you'll have a special perforated leather, and it will be heated on both the limited and the calligraphy. Now, as far as the wheel itself, it is going to be manual tilt and telescoping across the entire lineup. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about interior storage, which is one of this Palisade's most impressive characteristics. So starting out under our center console here, we have a little tray. We can remove that. And as you can see inside, we have a ton of space. This is a very deep console. You also have a USB and a 12-volt outlet inside. And as you can probably tell, it's going to be able to take these coupons absolutely no problems whatsoever. Now, what's impressive about the Palisade is that the storage is only just beginning. So if you press this button and slide this back, you have another really large storage area right here. You press these buttons and it releases your cup holders. You also have a wireless phone charging pad right there, which is available on the SEL and standard on the limited and above, plus another USB port. Now, furthermore, we have a floating center console, so you actually have a ton of space down here where you can stick you know, something extra like a purse or some groceries. And you have another 12-volt outlet and another USB port. So you definitely have an impressive amount of space that's a lot bigger than most of the competition, including the Telluride. Now, one of the ways that Hyundai went about making this much space is because they went with a small electronic shifter. So this is pretty self-explanatory. For drive, you're just going to press the D. You will find paddle shifters on board as well. And then for reverse, you just press the R at the top. Now once you press that, you're going to see a standard backup camera, of course, but you'll also find a surround view monitor system if you go for the limited model or the Calligraphy. It does have active trajectory, your 360 view, and then you can switch your views over here on the side. I also want to mention that parking sensors are standard, which is kind of surprising for this class of vehicle. And then when you're in reverse, your mirrors do tilt down to help you see the parking lines better. And you do also have an electronic parking brake as well as a brake hold function. Now right beside that, you'll notice all the controls for our seat climate. Heated seats are actually going to be standard on all but the very base model, which is a nice touch. And then the limited model and above will have seat ventilation as well. And then in regard to the actual climate controls themselves, we have a 3-zone automatic climate control setup. This is going to be standard on all but the base model. And as you can see, adjustment is super simple. You just have these knobs right here, as well as physical controls for everything else. And then directly above that, we also have our audio controls. Now on board for this upper end model here, we have the 630 watt 12 speaker Harman Kardon sound system. It is standard on both the limited and the Calligraphy model. So let's go ahead and take a sample. Overall sound quality of this system is excellent, definitely one of the best I've heard in this class of vehicle. Plus, we have real metal speaker grills which look extremely classy, especially for a mainstream vehicle. Alright, so now we are up here at our main display. So what you're looking at is the 10.25 inch display that is standard on the limited and the Calligraphy model. You can get it on the SEL as well if you want. And then the standard model comes with an 8-inch display instead. Now there are some changes this year to the Blue Link system. One of the important changes is that wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay are now available. However, it's only available with the basic 8-inch display. You actually cannot get it with this larger 10.25-inch display. However, when you have the larger 10.25-inch display, you still have wired Android Auto and wired Apple CarPlay, plus you have the integrated map display here from Hyundai. And also on the limited trim, that's where you will get the passenger talk system, which is basically an intercom that delivers your voice to the back seat so they can hear you clearly. Now moving on up from that, we have an auto dimming mirror with 3 helmet universal remotes on the limited trim. Up along the top, you will notice a moonroof. The standard size moonroof, that's available on the SEL. However, on this model right here, we've got the dual panel panoramic setup. So as you can see, you have a large panel on the back, second, and third row, as well as an opening smaller moonroof up here in the front. Now, while we're up here, I do want to point out one of the 2021 changes. You'll notice that the suede headliner has been eliminated from the limited this year. You now have a different design, which looks very similar to what you'll find in the Santa Fe. Still nice and premium. If you want the suede headliner, though, you'll now have to get the Calligraphy model.
Now, sitting in the Palisade second row, just closing your eyes and leaning back, you might just think you're in a luxury 3-row because this is an extremely nice rear seat, just like the Telluride fully loaded model is. Now, as far as your space, that's going to be the first thing to mention. You're going to come in at 42.4 inches of rear legroom and 40 inches of rear headroom, which does place it above main rivals like the Honda Pilot and Toyota Highlander, and of course right on par with that Kia Telluride. Now, as far as behind rear seating position, I have around 7 to 8 inches of rear legroom. My feet can easily set up underneath the seat, and it is also worth noting that this seat can also slide forward and back as well as recline. Now, as far as your feature set, there is going to be a lot. This is the almost fully loaded limited trim. So here in the center, we are going to have climate controls. The climate controls are going to be standard in the SEL trims and higher. Off to the side, we do have heated rear seats as well as 3-stage ventilated rear seats. And it is worth noting those ventilated rear seats come on the limited and calligraphy model. Dropping down, we have a household style outlet, a 12-volt outlet, and Hyundai has not forgotten about the USB ports because you do have 2 in the back of each seat back. Up top, we have our vents. And then as far as the seating itself is concerned, captain's chairs are going to be standard on the SEL trims and higher, and it is not an option to add the bench seating on the limited or calligraphy. And then off to the side, we have rear window sunshades, also on the limited and calligraphy model. Now, this Palisade is a 3-row, so let's check out that 3rd row. Now, Hyundai has made it very easy. All you have to do is locate this little button right here, push it, and it does fold the seat as well as slide it right out of the way. So definitely a very convenient way to get into the 3rd row. And let's go ahead and get back here. So sitting in the Palisade's 3rd row, this is a pretty impressive aspect of it because you're going to have 31 inches of rear legroom and 38 inches of rear headroom, which just place it at the top end of the class. It's definitely going to be better than something like a Toyota Highlander or a Honda Pilot. And, you know, as far as like the thigh support, it's not fantastic, but it also isn't too bad. Like, I really wouldn't have too much of a problem traveling on a long road trip in this 3rd row. And as you can see, this seat is slid all the way back and I still have about an inch or 2 of rear legroom. So definitely very impressive. Now, as far as the features, the limited model is going to throw in quite a few. So we have vents up top as well as a power recline function. So this is something that the Telluride does not offer. And it's also very rare just to have a power reclining 3rd row. I also want to point out that we do have the diamond quilted design back here, which is something I think is pretty impressive, as well as charging USB ports on the side. Now, walking up to the tailgate, you're going to notice that this Palisade Limited does have the hands-free smart trunk, and that's going to be standard on the limited and calligraphy models. Now, as far as the space you're going to get when you get inside of this cargo area, you're going to find 18 cubic feet behind the 3rd row seats. That expands to 46 cubic feet if you fold them, and then as a maximum you have 86 cubic feet of cargo capacity. That does place it above both the Highlander and Pilot. However, it is slightly below the Kia Telluride. And as far as how they finished it, very impressive. We have a nice carpeting along the floor. If we lift it up, we have a cargo cover as well as quite a bit of underfloor storage here. You could definitely throw a lot of stuff up there. Then off to the side, you're going to find a 12-volt outlet as well as one of the Palisade's coolest features, and that's that it includes a power folding 3rd row, which is something that really is extremely rare in this segment of vehicle and something that the Kia Telluride does not have. So it's definitely nice that Hyundai has thrown that in, and that is going to be on the limited and calligraphy models. Now, as far as your passenger seat, it is going to be power adjusting, of course, on this limited trim. And then in front of the passenger, we do have a really good sized glove box. This is a quite large glove box, so it's going to fit our coupons in here, no problem. So no matter how many coupons you have, they're going to fit. That's definitely good for a 3-row. And then up top, we do have a large sun visor with a mirror, LED light, and it does also detach as well as extend.
Just like that, we are up to 60, going up a pretty steep incline. So plenty of power on board with this Palisade. It's got the 3.8 liter naturally aspirated V6 engine, 291 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque. So you're looking at class competitive numbers roughly. Actually, some of the rivals come with 4 cylinders at this point, so you do have the standard V6 on board.
And I think it's definitely going to be more than enough for the average consumer. Like you said, up that hill, that acceleration, definitely satisfactory for this segment, if not better than most. But wow, we're cruising right now at 57 miles an hour, and you know, last year when we tested the Palisade, I was very impressed with the way it rode on the highway, and this year is no different. We're actually in the limited trim, so maybe it's even a little bit better than the SEL we tested last year, but it's really exceptional how smooth this rides and how quiet it is, you know, going 60 miles an hour. I will get a sound level reading so we can compare it to some of the rivals, but it definitely sounds very quiet in here.
Getting ready to go over a bridge here as well.
Yeah, we're looking at 55 decibels, and we're going a solid 60 miles an hour, and the Highlander tested at around 54, so one less, but we definitely weren't going 60. So I definitely think that this is on par, if not better, than the average thing in this segment for as far as the noise level, and the comfort is also just there.
Yeah, the ride on this is really excellent, super soft. I actually think it feels maybe a little bit softer than the Telluride. You know, that one has like maybe a little bit sportier on the suspension tuning, and this one's a little bit softer and more comfort oriented. So that's a little bit of a difference you could keep in mind if you're cross shopping the two of them. But like you said, in the class, you know, this is very comfort oriented. Definitely compares well with the Platinum version of the Highlander. So we just had our auto start stop system engaged. Really smooth. That was an excellent takeoff from the being turned off. Really nice.
Yeah, I didn't feel any vibrations at all. If I hadn't have seen it visually over there, I definitely wouldn't have noticed.
But I do always like to point out for people, since some people just genuinely do not like it, you can defeat it. The button's right there. As far as your handling is concerned, even though this is a really, really large vehicle, it really feels surprisingly agile. It has that characteristic just like the Telluride. I made a similar comment. You know, they're very large, but they feel smaller than the competition, just in the way that the handling or the chassis and the steering are tuned. Just gives it a more tossable, more agile feel, which minimizes the size and heft of everything. So on board, we've got an 8-speed automatic transmission. That is across all the entire range. Definitely operates nice and smoothly. Plenty fast shifts. It's also, you know, very responsive when you put your foot down, ready to rock and roll.
And it is also worth noting as far as the drivetrains, front wheel drive is standard, and you do have optional all-wheel drive.
So this is pretty ironic, but we're actually pulling up right beside a 2020 limited Palisade, and that actually is today's airball. You say, why is that? That's because, as we talked about on the outside, there's been some styling revisions for the limited trim level this year, and we're not sure they're for the better.
And as far as today's slam dunk, now there is a lot more to like than dislike with this Palisade, of course, because this is a really solid offering in the segment. We're going to say value. This is probably not going to come as a surprise to a lot of you guys, because Hyundais have a lot of value in all of their lineup, and this is no different. This one, as equipped, really just has more equipment than the competition. It's also cheaper than the competition. And it's worth noting that when you compare it to a Telluride, even though that does have a lot of value, a lot of Tellurides have markup, and this Palisade is not going to have that. It has more availability, so you will be able to go to your Hyundai dealer and just grab one of these, as opposed to a Telluride where you might have to wait or pay above sticker. Alrighty, and like we mentioned at the beginning, there is only one engine for this Palisade, so you're only going to have front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive for your fuel economies. The front-wheel drive is going to come in at 19 city, 26 highway, 22 combined, and the all-wheel drive drops that down 1 mpg. And since we were speaking about value just a second ago, let's go ahead and mention the prices for this Palisade lineup. Now keep in mind this is with front-wheel drive. So the SC is $32,525, SEL $35,175, Limited $45,125, and then now you have the Calligraphy. That is all-wheel drive only, and that's going to be $47,750. Now, as far as how this one is equipped, we have the limited front-wheel drive, and then when you add the destination charge of $1140, this one's grand total is going to come in at a pretty reasonable $47,520.
So at the beginning of the video I asked, is this Palisade the best 3-row crossover you can buy? And I have to say, after spending the day with it, it really is one of the best for sure. You know, is it the best? It's very difficult to say because there's a lot of really awesome competition in the segment. But I think any way you look at it, you are doing yourself a huge disservice if you don't at least come out to your Hyundai dealership and check one of these things out, because this has so much going for it that I really think that you've got to check it out if you're in the market for a 3-row crossover.
Well guys, that's going to be it for this in-depth look at the 2021 Hyundai Palisade Limited. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to help us out by hitting that subscribe button down below. All it's going to do is give you notifications on all of our most recent content. And speaking of our other content, we have a lot of 3-row content like the Toyota Highlander, Kia Telluride, as well as the rest of the Hyundai lineup. So be sure to check those out, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.